Hello, this is the Scottish Football Show, and this is what's coming up. In the face! An absolute coupon buster across the board. All not well for Mother nor Kettle as Stuart quits Steelmen. And as the transfer window slams shut, we delve into what exactly goes on behind the scenes.
Welcome to the latest episode of the Scottish Football Show. I'm Andrew Slaven, and well, what a weekend we had. A real true coupon buster. I don't think there was any winners, plenty of losers, everyone's a loser. Not this podcast though. Who's joining me this week? It's the man that I normally make follicle jokes about, but I'm going to keep it clean and resort back to my old ways. The Paisley punter from down under. He's in Melbourne. He's Melbourne City FC's lead creative director, super creative guy, Findlay Marks. You all right, pal?
Yeah, it's nice to see that you're joining me in your studio too as well, in the car. I think one of us definitely made a joke about looking like doggers. Some sort of doggers on a Zoom call.
Welcome to the Dogging UK podcast.
Oh man, grim.
We're both in our cars, man. It's like we're two failed marriages trying to talk our way through past failures. But no, this is actually about Scottish football. Well, look, if anyone's watching this or indeed listening to this, there's no Laura this week. What a shame. Oh, the disappointment is felt around the world. She's in Rome, Finn, for her fiance's birthday. Aye, someone's marrying her. Unbelievable scenes. They're obviously at Roma, Napoli. And Laura, she couldn't let us do this without her. So she sent us a wee video.
Right, I'm here. I don't even know if you can hear me. I'm here at Roma, Napoli. And if you look over here, there is our boy. Scott McTominay. He's the only one wearing tracky bottoms during the warm-up. It's cold tonight. I'm in the home end. Don't tell anyone that I'm not supporting Roma. But I'm here for our boys.
I just love that, most people would think going away for a birthday to Rome's like a romantic thing, but not really for Laura and her fiance. It's like they're there specifically to see Roma versus Napoli. That's the dedication to the football thing. And I'll try and squeeze in one or two absolutely raucous hot takes throughout the show to try and make up for the lack of Laura not being on.
Right, shall we crack on with some funnies? Just between me and you. This will be a laugh. Kick things off for me though.
And one thing that kind of came out this weekend, I think it'll be quite good. I haven't checked it out yet, but there's like a BBC Scotland kind of in-depth podcast mini-series coming out, which is around the whole Vladimir Romanov era at Hearts. And it's kind of, I think it's just, with that coming out, there's kind of been a flurry of fans sharing their favourite moments, for better or for worse, of his time in charge at the club. And one which I'd never seen before that absolutely blew my mind and kind of sums up what the man, I think, was like, just in general, is so it's Hearts on a pre-season tour in Austria in 2007. And the video, I'll put a little bit of it in here, is Romanov wearing boxing gloves, fighting a shirtless Roman Bednar, like their star striker at the time, also in boxing gloves. Bednar obviously taking it easy, but Romanov is not holding back. Like he is trying to get a couple of jolts in. It's one of those things that now you would hear a retired professional talking about in a podcast, and you'd be like, "That's mental. That never happened." And it would be something in the 80s or the 90s or whatever. This is all on camera. This is like relatively recent history, like within the last 20 years or so. Just absolutely incredible. Absolutely incredible. But that was
how hard is it to knock out your boss? Do you know what I mean?
When you see the height of Bednar as well against Romanov, it genuinely looks like the kind of the office manager fighting an actual boxer. Like Bednar's like 6 foot something and ripped and all this stuff. Yeah, it's just an incredible video. I can't believe I hadn't seen that before. And the other thing that I quite enjoyed this weekend, and this is obviously relating to something coming up a bit later in the show. We've got Anthony Joseph on about talking about kind of transfers and transfer deadline day. One thing that I did see, and this was a post on an account called Asmarca, talking about a player, formerly of this parish of Scottish football, the story of former Rangers winger Ryan Kent. He is signing for Persepolis, which is one of Iran's big football teams. The tweet's kind of set up almost like a Fabrizio Romano thing. So, he usually has like kind of three sentences. Go. Yeah, here we go. It's official. Somebody jetting in. It's going to be a such and such contract or whatever. So the post is all in Turkish, but when you click on Google Translate, there's some sensational lines. So I'll just read it out. The middle line is the one that I'm most interested in, but it starts off by saying Persepolis, coached by Ismail Kartel, reached an agreement with former Fenerbahce star, it says, although I don't think his timing is particularly good, Ryan Kent. But then the next line says, the fact that it is legal to keep crocodiles at home in Iran was the factor that convinced Ryan Kent. Which is incredible because obviously he's known for keeping some exotic pets, but that was a deal breaker for Ryan, bless him, that he could take his crocs over to Iran. So fair play.
Yeah, you have to pick where you go, for your children's futures and stuff like that. Do you know what I mean?
It takes all sorts. There'll be different things I'm sure that people would want to put into to contracts. Release clauses and all that kind of thing, relegation release clauses. But if you're going to look after my crocodile, you're going to get the best out of me. That seems to be the most important thing for Ryan, so fair play.
That is so bizarre. So weird, man. Ryan Kent. He deserves to come back to Scottish football, really, with that sort of behaviour. The one thing I loved is, wasn't really from the weekend, it was BBC's commentary of Rangers versus Union Saint-Gilloise, which a club I remember you saying perfectly well. Rangers obviously won the match, which was good news for them. But during it, I can't quite remember where the player was that went down with an injury. It looked like there was a facial injury, obviously, because it prompted Steven Thompson, who was in co-com duty, to react over the replays. It felt like of saying like, "Oh, it's straight it's in the face," and then he clearly remembers the movie The Hangover, and he goes like, "In the face."
The referee immediately stopped play because he thought Sykes had taken a head knock, which effectively he did because he stopped the McCausland shot coming in. Let's have another look at it. McCausland got it sweetly.
Oh, it's right
straight
in
off
the
the face. Yeah, in the face.
It's the fact that he laughs remembering the movie and just repeats it, which I am so here for. Like, I think I spend half of my day doing that, like remembering old like Will Ferrell movies and just repeating Anchorman. He got a lot of stick for it. I think there's a tweet saying like, "Oh, what does it say actually?" This is from Shutsa Palooza, saying wildly inappropriate commentary, but followed that by laughing. Oh, it's so good.
I laughed at it, I've got to say, initially. But then the more I thought about it, I was like, it's a wee bit inappropriate. Like, there's a player down injured and you go, "In the face." on national broadcast radio. I was like, yeah. But the thing is, I thought it was a really funny thing, actually. And it seems to have been, it's not done in from a bad place or anything like that. So I think that's absolutely fine.
Thing is, like, Steven Thompson's okay. He's 10 years older than me, but like I feel so aligned to him that I'm like I could get on with Steven Thompson with this player. Just it felt like it was just a bit more relatable, and then it's like punditry and broadcasting so much nowadays. It's just so. I guess it's why so many people are attracted to like YouTube. Podcast kind of like breaking down the game and stuff like that, because it just feels a bit less personal and stuff like that. So yeah, Tomo, more of that, please, man. That is so fun. In the face.
The dogs bark and the caravan passes. The caravan keeps moving. The caravan keeps going.
Right, joining us ahead of, well, I say ahead of a hectic transfer day, as Sky Sports journalist, as well as being a good pal, Anthony Joseph. Anthony, the deadline day will have passed by the time this recording goes out, but you are, as it stands, preparing for it all. the wonders of it all. And I want to kick off this quick chat with you, because we do an industry question on the podcast where people love, the public, get in touch with us with questions about how do you do this and how do you do that and who's a dick and who's not a dick. We don't talk about the latter stuff, but you have been with Sky Sports for a few years, and deadline day must be the most mental time that you have to deal with. Here's an early question for myself. Do you book some holiday off the back of deadline day? Because it's like the end of the season type thing for me or anyone else, where you try and get away because it's the most manic time. Are you off the week
Yes.
after?
So at 1 a.m. after the deadline and all that, I have got 2 weeks off. I'll be sticking my bottles on, and the same will happen in September as well. I need a couple of weeks off after a transfer window, definitely.
Because you're like me and Finn. Like we're all dads. You've got a missus to keep happy, and responsibilities. You need these 2 weeks.
Yes, I need the 2 weeks off, definitely. I've got a nice family time. My mum's coming down, and we'll just do days out
Lovely.
with a daughter. So yeah.
You're looking fresh, man. You're looking fresh.
I'm not feeling it. I'm feeling the bubble, lots of coffees and Red Bull and things like that.
And it's really classy you're giving me this time, or both of us, all of us this time. But the question came in from Ewan about transfer deadlines, which is why we've got you on the show. So, like, how do you, without giving away any like sort of trade secrets or who your sources are and stuff like that, what is transfer day like for you, and how do you build up like a contacts book of sources and people that you can trust to get not just rumours, but it needs to be solid sort of detail on transfers, right? You can't just say this is happening without knowing there's genuine quality behind the rumour.
Yeah, so to answer your first question about what deadline day is like, the build up to it, I mean, the build up to it is usually just as mental as the day itself. But I mean, this weekend, for example, yesterday, I was pretty much on working for about 14, 15 hours non-stop. And today just come back from the newsroom after a good 12, 13 hours there. And tomorrow, on deadline day, well, sorry, I know the podcast will be out later, but on deadline day, I'll be in the newsroom from 6:30 in the morning till finish, so about till 1 in the morning. So it's a solid shift, and it's just deadline day at Sky Sports News. The only way I can describe it is like Christmas Day. Everyone dresses up for it, brings in chocolates, brings in things that's going. If anyone's worked on news, it's a bit like an election night. So that's what I can compare it to, but a bit more, I don't know, I feel there's a bit more drama and a bit more excitement than an election night, because sometimes things come out of the blue and just, you can't believe it. For example, things that have happened at Sky, I mean, Aaron Ramsey to Rangers on deadline day was a shock. It was like a massive shock. People thought it was just surely some rumour, and then it turned out to be true. There's been plenty like that as well. That's just a Scottish football reference for one. And I think everyone knows, obviously well before my time, like Robbie Keane signing. It can be so exciting, so out of the blue as well. And the one thing that makes it as well, that if you hear about a story or hear about interest or an approach for a player from your sources, you know there's going to be an end, there's going to be a conclusion that day. It's not like at the start of the window where things might drag out. Yeah, you've got to wait a couple of weeks before things go from talks to advanced talks and agreements and all that. Something has to end, whether it falls through or it goes ahead. There has to be a conclusion by 11 p.m. On deadline day. So that's where the excitement comes from. And like I said, there's a real buzz about the newsroom at Sky Sports News for deadline day. It really is like the two deadline days are two of the main days in the calendar at Sky Sports News. So a big deal and a huge day. To prepare for it mentally is quite a big thing as well. Actually, like I'm going to go and have a bath and then just relax and then go and just chill for a bit, because I've been in the newsroom for what feels like the last 7-8 days. So it's going to be, you just need to get yourself in a good frame of mind. But then it's really hard to switch off because now, like, for example, I do a lot of Scottish football reporting. Two of Scotland's biggest clubs, Celtic and Rangers, have just finished matches. They've had their post-match press conferences, and Rodgers has spoken about a striker, things like that. So it's you've got to keep on top of it and try and, especially when at this point of me speaking, there is no clear target for certain positions, if you know what I mean, for some clubs. So there's going to be a lot of last minute scrambling, I feel, and a lot of domino effect as well. There's quite often is the case when someone takes someone else's striker, and then has to be a ripple effect for that.
Yeah.
So that's the sort of drama of it, and it can be really exciting. There's a real buzz. Adrenaline usually keeps you going.
So how do you build up your contacts book? How do you get in touch or build a relationship? Do you build a relationship with clubs or with agents? Like, who's more value to you, or are they both just equal value?
Both just equal. It just depends on your relationship with certain people in certain circles, I guess. And contacts can be built up over years. Like, I've been a journalist now since I was 19 full time. So I started at the Aberdeen Evening Express. And so I still delve into contacts from up there. Now that I'm down in London at Sky Sports News, I still use a lot of my Scottish contacts that I built up. And some are become friends, some are just a professional relationship with, and it's whether that's with agents or club sources or people who do deals like intermediaries as well. So there's lots of different ways into making contacts, and it takes years to build up real trust and relationship with your most trusted contacts, and it can just take one word to completely ruin it. So you've got to be very careful with like how you word things to keep all parties happy with the way you word it as well, because we've got to remember the one difference I feel at Sky Sports that I've had compared to previous jobs is that there's a business relationship with these clubs in Scotland and England as well. So we do have to check. We might get something from one source, but we have to check it out from all sides: the buying club, the selling club, and the player's side.
That's interesting. So if you say a hypothetical kind of workflow, do you hear maybe from an agent, and then you have to go to a club and say, I've heard that maybe this person might be off or this might be coming in, and clubs would respond to that in a way that's like, yeah, there's merit to that?
Ideally, that would be great. Now, obviously, there's relationships with press offices as well and clubs as well that we've got to go through or run something by. It just depends. Yeah. So for example, use the example of an agent. If an agent came with a story that this club wants to buy one of my players, or is in advanced talks or whatever, that could. We would still have to check it out at both sides. And I think that's why quite often we get, and I see it on my own Twitter feed or something like that, or you're late to the news, or this has already been reported. I think but compared to when I was working in newspapers, we have to do checks from all three sides before we put anything out, which I think, while we may not always be first to a story, I think people do value it that we are a trusted source, because we may have put something out that's been around for a day, or Fabrizio Romano's had it out on his Twitter feed or something like that. But we'll check it out at all ends, and then once we're comfortable with the story, then we'll put something out.
That was actually a little question I kind of wanted to ask, because I kind of feel like Fabrizio Romano in particular has just become such a central figure to the whole transfer rumour news cycle. And, it would be interesting to get your take on, as somebody in the industry, on what he's perceived like and everything. Because I think there's certain people, it's almost like there's no joy in the surprise, I think, a lot of the time now, because you feel like somebody like Fabrizio Romano, or there might be other people, jump in ahead, and it's kind of like, I don't know, it spoils the surprise or something. You don't really get the same thing of what it was growing up, where it's just like all of a sudden there's a news story and somebody's just there outside the club wearing with the scarf above the head or whatever. What's the kind of industry feelings on someone like Fabrizio Romano?
Yeah, well, when I started at Sky Sports News, I was working with Fabrizio quite a bit, because he was at Sky Italy, and working under Gianluca Di Marzio, who was, I guess, the original sort of transfer guru, and Fabrizio was sort of taken under his wing and built up his own network of contacts, and has built himself up into sort of a transfer guru, but also built up like an empire. He's got his own staff. He's got people doing his Instagram, his Twitter. I mean, it's amazing what he's done. No one can argue with that. But there's still times where there are things he's put out or whatever, and they don't materialize. I know that's not his fault, but our clubs say, "Oh, yeah, that was the case maybe a couple of days ago, but it's moved on now, or it's not happening." So that it's not always like, I mean, he doesn't break the news on absolutely everything, but for major things, he quite often does, or he'll collaborate or with other journalists. So it's sort of actually, it's a very new thing. He's sort of trailblazing this sort of environment of transfer news, in terms of us never seeing someone just holding up a scarf and being, "Wow, that's happened." I'm not sure we will in this day and age of social media. I mean, someone somewhere is going to see someone at an airport or boarding a flight or packing their bags from their home. The amount of times you get pictures sent like that, it's crazy. Not that we'll publish things all the time.
Bringing it to Scotland and transfers up in Scotland, is there anything that you've found really interesting that's been happening in Scotland? Sort of like out with of Celtic and Rangers, if you can, because I know they do so much business. What's caught your eye?
I think what's good to see is other Scottish clubs paying fees, and we're seeing that a bit more. And it was sad that for the last decade or so, a lot of the other clubs were doing like really minimal fees or free transfers, loans, that kind of thing. Whereas Aberdeen have gone up to two, and just in this window, I've had 2 players in for £800,000. We've seen Hibs pay up to £800,000 in the summer, and it's good. I think that's a good thing, and I think things like also Hearts as well, paying 6-figure fees on players. The guy, the midfielder they got from Namo, Michael Steinbinder, and so that's a good thing, and I think that's partly down to UEFA prize money trickling down, and also down to more clubs being in Europe. In terms of like half the 5 clubs in Scotland are parts of the Scottish Premiership will get to play in Europe. This is all because of the introduction of the UEFA Conference League. Hearts got £6 million from being part of the UEFA Conference League 2 seasons ago, and Aberdeen have got it from last season, and Hearts are going to get it again at the end of this season. So clubs are getting a bit more money and able to spend and buy players, and I think the Scandinavian market is starting to prove like quite a good market for Scottish clubs to operate in. But we'll see how it works out for especially Jimmy Tillion's Aberdeen.
We need to wrap things up, Anthony, and I will end it by saying I'm glad that you're there, because now you'll always be there for any Scottish football fans trying to say your Da sells Avon is off the Aberdeen.
I'll try my best.
Look, guys, no, that's rubbish. That can't be true. That's definitely no.
For sure, because he's a decent player.
You think I'm going to answer a stupid question like that?
Right, from fun stuff to not so fun stuff. Motherwell's manager, Stuart Kettlewell, has quit the club because him and his family have been receiving tons of abuse, which is disgusting. It's something that we all know happens in football, and there's a tolerance level, and that has gone through the roof, which is, when you consider, it always surprised a lot of people because Motherwell are in fifth, but it's always caveated with the fact that they've only had one win in 9 matches. But it does beg the question, how do you police something like this, Finn? How do you try and manage the situation? Because, as the club have said, they didn't want to say yes to Stuart's request to leave the club, but you can't stand in someone's way especially if they're turning around and saying, my family can't even come to the ground.
It's quite a sad story, I think, because football and all sport, I think it's an entertainment thing, and you got punters that are coming and going to pay their entry fee, and they feel entitled to say whatever they want. I think if it's bordering on abuse, though, that's a bit of a dangerous thing. And nobody should be abused in their place of work. And if Stuart Kettlewell's felt that it's something that he can't keep on going with, then that's quite a serious thing, and you would want the club to investigate all of this kind of thing. Not even trying to play devil's advocate, but just trying to look at this from all sides. It has to be something that Motherwell kind of should be stepping out and saying that they're investigating these claims, because I think very quickly what I found odd was just like there was a kind of almost like a narrative appearing about the whole Motherwell fan base that I'm not sure is something that I've experienced of the Motherwell fan base. At times I've been to Fir Park or been around Motherwell fans or anything like that. I wouldn't say that they're a particularly notorious club for abusing players or fans or managers or anything like that, any more than maybe the regular run of abuse that teams that aren't performing very well get, and that fans give to their players and their managers in that stage, especially when Motherwell, the dynamics difficult as well, because Motherwell's a fan-owned club. So I think for a fan-owned club to be coming out and saying and getting behind these allegations, this story, this narrative, whatever you want to call it, about a manager effectively being hounded out because he was being bullied by the supporters, that's quite a serious thing, and it could have quite big repercussions. This is a shame that Laura's not on the show this week, because obviously she's somebody that knows Motherwell better than neither of us do, and the makeup of the club and everything like that. I just find that quite odd as that story was developing. In a purely footballing sense, it's a bit of a shame. I mean, results haven't been great. He's got not bad win percentage, I don't think, overall. What was it, around about 40%, 41%? With the best will in the world, is that maybe kind of where Motherwell should be, round about the split in the table-ish, maybe just slightly under. Traditionally is kind of where they finish a lot of the time. So they've certainly not been overperforming, but have they really been underperforming? I don't know, maybe compared to some of the other teams in the table.
The big thing for me is that they've lost a manager who feels like a good fit for the club. Do you know what I mean? He always stood up for his players, and he always stood up, and he's quite an interesting guy to listen to. He's got that very definitive way of talking that you can kind of be like, I really believe in what he's saying. And sometimes you can be like, nah. But at the end of the day, he was able to stabilise Motherwell. He was almost 2 years into the job. Motherwell have been rinsing through managers, and this is the difficulty the club are now in, is that they've got this really black mark sitting above them now, that other managers that are maybe young managers with like a great future ahead of them, perhaps might just be like, I don't really fancy going to Motherwell. There's tons of people desperate for an opportunity to manage, and there will be so many people desperate to get a great job like Motherwell. But it's there now, and Motherwell aren't going to get rid of that anytime soon. People will forget it naturally. I think in 2 years' time, people will look back and be like, oh yeah. But right now, it's just a really bad look, and I hope that Motherwell, because a good Motherwell team should be in the Premiership. They should hope. I hope they get someone that can make them better. But if they're going to face abuse, I think the club need to focus on rooting those people out of the club before building for the future now, if I'm being honest. Let's move on to talk about European matters as well, because good news for Scottish football fans. Well, let me rephrase that. That's good news for Celtic and Rangers fans. They've got European football, which is good news for other Scottish football clubs because money will trickle down. Read into that how you will, but it will be there. Even though Celtic were defeated at Villa, they're going to play Bayern Munich, which is a tasty one. And do we know who Rangers are playing yet?
The draw has been done, but it's dependent on other ends. So obviously, because Rangers kind of defied the odds to fit, I think they had before match day 8, they had less than a 10% chance of finishing in the top 8 because I think they needed something like 5 or 6 different results all to go their way and beat USG, all of which happened. Which is an incredible achievement. So what that means now, slightly more money. They obviously skip the knockout round, so they will go straight to the round of 16, and they will face one of Bodo Glimt, FC20, where interestingly Sam Lammers is now, and it's also where they signed Robin Proper from the start of the season, Anderlecht, who Philip Clement will know quite well, and Rangers have a good record against Belgian teams. And Fenerbahce, who we just mentioned with Ryan Kent, of course, now managed by Jose Mourinho. So Jose coming to Ibrox could be, yes, please. I'd be quite keen on seeing that one happen.
You see, Twente would be nuts to go to. Like at halftime of their match, I saw there was like so many fireworks at halftime. All I was thinking about was Laura going, "This is class," and then I was just watching the fog, like this. But it was honestly, it was pretty unbelievable. The scene at Twente, like that atmosphere would be insane. Although I know Dutch clubs are notoriously rather aggressive, so maybe just watch yourself if you're going over there as well.
I think of those 4 teams, the cliche, there's no easy ties at this level, and obviously even Bodo Glimt, you might say, is potentially the weakest of those 4. They just missed out on the top 8, and only a couple of seasons ago they beat Celtic home and away, so they'll be tricky. I don't think many teams will want to come to Ibrox just with the results that Rangers have had over recent seasons and the performances. So, and they get through that, potentially one of the ties against these 4 teams, they're into another European quarterfinal, which is an astonishing achievement. I don't hold out a huge amount of hope for Celtic getting through against Bayern Munich, who are top of the Bundesliga at the moment. Weren't incredible, I would say, in the Champions League group stage, but then you didn't really need to be to get through. Man City were garbage and still snuck through with, I think it was just 3 wins or something like that. So that's a tricky one. That's really tricky. And I think if they get through that tie, is it not Real Madrid or Man City, one of those 2 that they'll play?
I think for Celtic fans, there's an acceptance that the goal was to get to this point.
Yeah.
And that mission has been achieved. And Celtic fans want a good away day, ultimately, and I think Celtic could have only played Bayern Munich or Real Madrid.
Yeah,
and most of them would have wanted Bayern Munich. The Allianz is an exceptional stadium, and it's actually a really long walk to get there as well. It's not close to anything, but it's just such an amazing sight.
But is it not actually confirmed now that there's the possibility, or certainly, I don't know if it's been confirmed or not, that Celtic won't have away fans?
It's not confirmed. It's not confirmed, but it probably will be by the time this podcast goes out. But listen, it doesn't mean that Celtic fans aren't going to be in Munich.
Yeah,
it just might not be in the ground. And what better place to go? Munich is a cool city, man. Really, really cool. And fingers crossed, crazy things can happen in football, especially Scottish.
There was just one other thing that I wanted to chuck in while we're talking about European football, not Scottish football, but Scottish football adjacent. So obviously, Rangers played Spurs in the group stage, and who are managed by former Celtic manager Ange Postecoglou. But he was asked, I think, in the press conference after Spurs game about the kind of injury crisis at White Hart Lane at the moment. And I think it might be one of my favourite ever football quotes. He said, "Every time I think I see the light at the end of the tunnel, it turns out to be an oncoming train." I just thought that was just such an exceptional quote. So I just wanted to make mention of that while we were still talking about the European section.
Don't know how many times you've been to this ground, Craig, but you never fail to enjoy winning here, do you? I love it.
Right, what happened in the Scottish Premiership over the weekend, Finn? I did kind of tee this whole podcast up that it was a coupon buster weekend. The Hearts have had their struggles over the season, but they're on a real upturn at the moment, and they absolutely battered Dundee 6-0. Like, where the hell was that? Massive victory coming from. A great result for them.
Did not see that coming at all, that margin as well, because Dundee have got a really good home record.
I like Dundee under the dock.
And they're really well organised. They're difficult to break down. They've got some really good, exciting younger players that have been coming through. I didn't see this coming. In fact, I don't think anybody could have done, because I'd seen a stat on Twitter. It was at Heart Stats, which is quite a good account to follow. They always come out with interesting things. But they shared after the match, it's the first time in over 35 years that Hearts have scored 6 or more goals in a top flight away game. The previous time they did it was 6-0 win over St Mirren in Paisley in February 1988. And I don't know what was scarier for me reading that it's been that long since, a thumping Hearts victory, because you often think of them as the third force in Scottish football or whatever. They certainly have been at times. Or the fact that 1988 is over 35 years ago, because I would have just been a small child at the time, but it does seem like it shouldn't be 37 years ago. That was actually. But
I wasn't even born yet.
Scary, man, scary. I was only 3, to be fair. In fact, two at the time when that happened. But anyway, yeah.
Does that mean the big 40's coming?
Certainly is this year. Yeah, fun times.
Oh, mate.
Yeah.
That's a big margin.
Just one other thing I wanted to mention from the Dundee Hearts game. This is again from the kind of online portals afterwards. I feel like we've not really talked about the actual on the pitch stuff, which is a bit of a shame, because Hearts were incredible and some of the goals were absolutely magnificent. But I did enjoy there was a great bit of shithousery that I'd seen from a Dundee fan online where they spliced Vargas's goal with one of Albert Kidd's goals from when Dundee beat Hearts on the final day of the league season in 1986, which meant Hearts lost the title and Celtic won it. And it's just perfectly spliced between just the moment that Vargas is about to hit it and Albert Kidd's shot going over the line.
That's a decent cut.
It's a beautiful match cut. Yeah, beautiful match cut. As an editor, I was proud of that. But it's a lovely bit of history. Loved that.
There's not much of that going on for Aberdeen. There's no smiling there at all. They were 2-0 losers to Hibs. Sorry, Aberdeen fans. Couldn't resist. But it's mad. Like, if you think of Aberdeen, everyone's been speaking about it for ages. But it's not just the defeats now, it's the lack of goals. Like, the only goal, they've not scored in the last 5 league games, right? Like, okay, they beat Elgin City. Well done. But, like, your bread and butter's the league, guys. I don't know what's going on. But there's a bunch of stats out there where, like, everything that they were achieving early on, and, like, everything's almost like 20% less. So that's like work rate, that's like attitude, that's like things that you are expecting to see, and like there's just the belief is gone. And there's people talking about Talene should lose his job, and it's like, if you've seen what he can do, then surely it's worth kind of, and he's only still in the job, it's still his first year, surely there's enough credit in the bank. I don't know, maybe I'm wrong.
I think definitely, like, to me, it would be completely foolish to get rid of Jimmy Talene at this point, for those exact reasons. And actually, it was interesting, his post-match after the game, he was talking about a lack of application, not necessarily throwing his players under the bus, but he was questioning the commitment and the intensity that some of his players had, because it certainly wasn't there during the Hibs game. And I guess, like, there's the classic thing of all football fans and football supporters. There'll be Aberdeen fans that want him at the door because, this run's not good enough. But I think the vast majority of Aberdeen fans will be looking at this being like, well, we know what he's capable of, and you want to look at a longer picture, and it's really disappointing being in the middle of this run now. But if Taylor's given a number of different transfer windows to try and bring in the types of players that he wants, obviously a striker who scores goals would be good. And they've obviously really, it's an easy thing to say, but they have really lacked just the presence of someone like Miovski and that talent and that skill and the way that he could finish so many different types of chances, because they looked the rest of the team could be rubbish and he could still get things out of games for them. He was that special a player. So they've really missed not having a player like that, I think, a lot over the last year. But you would back him to turn it around eventually. You don't know where it's coming from. Having said that, you look on the other team in this match, Hibs. We were saying all that same stuff at the start of the season about them. You're like, how do they turn it around? Where is this one coming from? How do you build on, this thing where Aberdeen looked like they were snatching victories and points out of nowhere? Tillane would make an amazing substitution and they would get a last gasp goal. How many late goals did Aberdeen score early on in the season? And Hibs were the total opposite. They were getting ahead in games. They were conceding like goals. Totally.
Last minute, yeah.
But they really seem to have settled down into it now. And to me, like at the time, I remember saying, I was like, I think it would be silly to sack David Gray. I think you need to give managers time enough, because there's still time to turn your season around. If boards get itchy trigger fingers, kind of, right about September, oh no, we're bottom of the league, September, October, there's loads of time to turn your season around, especially when you're a club with the resources and the squad, the ability that someone like Hibs have. So it's good to see that he's turning it around now.
The difference for me with Hibs was in those early stages, it just felt like they were almost there in every game. Like, if Tylene's saying the lack of application amongst his squad, I don't think you could really put that towards the Hibernian squad in those early stages. So what? They're now 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 games unbeaten. The last defeat was 7th of December against Celtic. They've almost gone through the whole league and not lost against them. And so what have they got coming up? And okay, so they've got some testing ties coming up now in teams that are all in the playoff picture, the kind of European picture. St Mirren, they've got Celtic as well, but then they go to Dundee United, and then it's the Edinburgh Derby on the 2nd of March. So, I mean, yeah, I just think Hibs have been good all season. It's just those early seasons were so unlucky. But enough about them, because we're rattling through. St Mirren lost against St Johnstone. There's another coupon buster for you. St Johnstone seem to be, and another upturn, another team that's turning things around.
Well, since we had Greg Browning, St Johnstone fan, on the show a couple of weeks ago, and they were in the middle of this absolutely stinking run, and since then they've played 3-1-3 twice against Motherwell.
I think we've had someone on at clubs that have been doing terribly, and ever since then they've all done really well.
Although we've also had an Aberdeen fan on this season, and Glenn Schroeder, and he
went terribly.
They've obviously nosedived after that, so apologies to them. But if there are any clubs that are really struggling, we'll see if we can get somebody who supports your club on the show and see if that doesn't turn into an upturn in form. I did feel St Johnstone were a little bit lucky to win this one, probably. It was interesting. I think St Mirren went all out on a VAR decision in their official comms, being like, oh, it's an absolute disgrace, blah, blah, blah. I always feel a bit odd when clubs do that. Maybe try and push it of like, we want answers from the SFA or something like that. But when you go after one specific decision, I was like, it's a bit odd.
Yeah.
One thing I love from this game, did you see the old boy in the away end?
Yes.
Phenomenal scenes. This is something literally worth seeking out or jumping on to watch this on YouTube, because he looks like quite a frail old guy, but he is giving it everything with the double Vickies to the away support, like going like this. It's fantastic. In a sea of celebrating St Johnstone fans, he's the only one turned actively towards the away supporters. flicking them off. So fantastic to see. More of that, please.
Very funny. It's almost like robotic the way he's reacting, but there's so much joy in his delivery. Wonderful. The difficult one for St Johnstone fans to take would have been when they looked at the news that Kilmarnock had also won. So two clubs that are fighting it out at the bottom of the table right now. But Kilmarnock beating Dundee United, who have had a good season so far. That's a surprise. Real surprise.
Yeah, I think so. And especially with, Dundee United have been another team in really good form, catching Aberdeen. So yeah, a bit of a surprise there.
Celtic fans had the delight of seeing their former hero Jota return to the club, and he made it 3-1 against Motherwell. Some emotional scenes from him. So Celtic keep their lead at the top of the table to 10 points. And Rangers were rampant against Ross County, Finn.
It was about as straightforward as a league win can go. I think the best thing for me was seeing John Souttar come back into the team after he was injured in December. He's been out the last 2 months or so. There was an incredible stat that I saw that I couldn't quite believe was true. Souttar, I think, has been one of Rangers' best players and most consistent players so far this season. And he does have mistakes in him every now and again, but this stat, which I found incredible, was from the start of the season to the point John Souttar got injured, Rangers hadn't conceded a goal from a set piece the whole season. Since his injury, and I think it was in the 6 or 7 games since then, they conceded 5 goals from set pieces. So it just shows you the importance of him being in that defence. And the Rangers defence has been makeshift for the last couple of weeks. It's been dreadful. So they'll be happy with him returning a clean sheet. Also, Rangers' first penalty of the season as well. I know fans of other clubs are always on about the volume of penalties that Rangers get. So
I don't believe it.
They've had 0. They were the only club in the top flight not to have been given a penalty until this weekend, when James Taverner stepped up to make it 4-0.
Oh, the agenda. Well, look, let's rattle through down the lower leagues as well. Finn, you just want to rattle through the League 2 for me, please, pal, and I'll take the rest.
League 2, well, East Fight's recent amazing kind of winning run came to an end, and not in the happiest way for their manager either, where Elgin City beat them and Dick Campbell got sent off. He was not a happy chappy. We saw his post-match. He was not a happy guy. And just at the other end of the table, Forfar not looking like they're in a good spot, rooted to the bottom of the table, is still without a win in any competition since the 15th of December. So yeah, it's not looking great for them.
The hope for fans though will be they've got 2 games in hand over Clyde, who are above them by like 7 points. You claw 2 victories out of that. I don't know who they've got to face, but there is hope at the end of the tunnel. It's mad though when you look at that table. You see Bonnyrigg Rose were deducted 6 points this season, and they would have been pretty much almost pushing for a playoff spot as well in that league. Really interesting. But in League 1, Stenhousemuir are still leading the table. They did go 3 games without winning a game, but they beat Montrose 3-0 at Links Park, so they're back to winning ways. Inverness kind of battered Queens. It was 1-0, but Queens can't buy a victory away from home, so it's not good because Queen of the South have been doing really well recently. I think it was 5 wins, or five games unbeaten it was. But I don't think Peter Murphy has a team that's really ready to get promoted yet. I hope I'm wrong, but you can't be so bad away from home. And we are really bad away from home and expect to go up, so there's a lot of work to be done. But Inverness winning was bad news for Dumbarton, who are pretty much they're heading down, man. They've got 14 points to claw back if they're going to try and catch. I think it's Inverness actually.
It will be Inverness, and also Inverness look like they're probably going to catch Annan as well, who were above them despite being deducted those 12 points. So yeah, I think Annan will be feeling the heat now as well.
I shouldn't have bought the top. Remember, I bought the Inverness top after all that. What a moron. Oh jeez, I'll be wearing a Queen's top next week. And let's talk the Championship, Finn, because Falkirk lost at home to Livingston. It's pretty tight at the top. 2 points separating the top 3. scenes, mate.
Yeah, I wouldn't have had Livy to get the 3 points, and it was interesting. They were admin. I know Laura's not a massive fan, but they were rubbing it in as much as they could to Falkirk after that victory. It's a really good win for them, and I mean things are so interesting at the top of the championship, as it always is. But I think there's like 2 points separating the top 3 teams, so yeah. I think it'll go right down to the wire with all those teams.
And there was Dunfermline, who have had a really tough season, got 3 points in the Fife Derby. A Chris Kane hat-trick. When was the last time he did that? A man of your fellow follicle appearance.
Terrific haircut. Makes him more aerodynamic. That's why he scored the hat-trick.
Yeah. The thing with Dunfermline is the next team they face, I think, is Aberdeen in the Scottish Cup, right? That could be interesting. It kind of leads me into our next segment, actually, because it'll be an emotional night at East End Park, because with earlier on in January, with the passing of Jimmy Calderwood, he managed both teams. The really nice story is that both clubs have came out and said that every £1 raised from ticket sales will go to the charity Alzheimer's Scotland, which is a really nice gesture. And we were really grateful to John Bleasdale, who set up a little interview with former Dunfermline and Aberdeen player Barry Nicholson, who's now assistant at Queen's Park, and a good old Dumfries boy. And this is what he had to say about the game and about Jimmy.
To state the obvious, what was your reaction when you heard of Jimmy's passing after a long battle with obviously dementia?
Yeah, to hear the news of Jimmy's passing was obviously a sad moment. I think he touched a lot of the lads that were at these clubs' lives and careers, and he certainly played a big part in mine, and he'll be sorely missed.
You were obviously leaving Rangers to get first team football, and Dunfermline came in. What was your first impressions of Jimmy when he signed in 2000?
Yeah, well, I didn't really know a lot about him. Obviously, he spent a lot of time in Holland. I think Jimmy Nick came and watched me in a reserve game down at Dumbarton, and I spoke to him after the game, so I knew there was a little bit of interest. And Ian Ferguson was already at Dunfermline. He'd signed from Rangers as well, so Fergie had a big part to play in me moving to Dunfermline as well. So, but yeah, once I got there, I really enjoyed his training. It was pretty similar to what I'd been used to at Rangers under Dick Advocat, with a lot of possession, a lot of passing, a lot of technical stuff. So yeah, right away I really enjoyed the training. I knew that I was going to really enjoy working under him. So yeah, very quickly I got to terms with how he was as a manager and how he was as a coach.
Yeah, and you got promotion a few months later in the Premier League, but then Dunfermline built a really good team. And you mentioned Ian Ferguson, he was there for a bit, but then Scott Thompson comes in and he was a very solid defender / midfielder. You had guys like Jason Dare, you had Lee Bullen, obviously. And up front, the partnership of Brewster and Crawford was as good as any in that division. I mean, how did you feel playing in that team at that time?
Yeah, listen, we were brilliant. That's probably the team that a lot of us still keep in touch with each other. I think it's because we played so well together and had such a good time together. So, but yeah, you mentioned the partnership there, Craw and Brew. It was a brilliant partnership. Out with the old firm, it was probably better than any striking pair in the division. So we always knew that we had chances to win games with they two in the team. But yeah, you've mentioned a few players there. There was a lot of good players in that team, and we just got better every season that we worked under Jimmy. So I think the Dunfermline fans would have really enjoyed the football at that time.
It all came together 2003-04. You beat Rangers at home, you beat Celtic at Parkhead when they were clinching the title, finishing 4th in the league, reaching the Scottish Cup final, where of course you scored arguably one of your best ever goals against Inverness. And in the final against Celtic, at one point you're 1-0 up and you're dreaming, thinking the cup's going to be ours. And it's only the intervention of a certain departing Henrik Larsson that probably stopped you from winning the cup that day.
Yeah, no, it was like that. The run to the cup was a brilliant experience for me. You just mentioned Scott Thompson earlier there. It was really unfortunate for Nipper. He was injured for the last part of the season. So Jimmy actually made me captain as well, which was a big highlight in my career. And then obviously went in the run. I think I scored the Clyde Partick Thistle, the semi-final against Inverness, and then obviously culminating in the final at Hampden, leading out the team. It was just a brilliant experience for me. As you say, I thought we were possibly going to go on and lift the trophy, 1-0 up at half time, but yeah, I think it was just written in the stars that Larsson was going to go on and lift the trophy in his final game for Celtic. So, no, a brilliant highlight of my career was leading the team out that day in the final.
And how gutted were you all when Jimmy announced that he was leaving? It was just like 5 days later he obviously turned up at Pittodrie.
Yeah, I actually went on holiday. I was away in Spain when I first heard about it. So Yeah, a real surprise to everybody. I don't know like how he felt about things at Dunfermline. I don't know if it was where he'd maybe taken us as far as he could. And then obviously got the opportunity to go probably possibly a bigger club in Aberdeen. But yeah, it happened very quickly. None of the boys knew anything about it, so it was a big shock when he decided to move up the road.
Yeah, and then a year later, you rock up at Pittodrie, having followed Richard Byrne and Jamie Langfield up there. How much did Jimmy have a role to play in you going to Aberdeen as much as the club itself, obviously?
Yeah, I'm a massive part of it. I don't think if he was the manager at Aberdeen, I'd probably went up there. Obviously, I could seen him go up there. I enjoyed really working with him and Jimmy and Sandy Clark. And I just felt that it was the right thing to do at the time. It was disappointing my last year at Dunfermline. I was injured for long spells in it as well. Struggled with a hernia injury towards the end of the season, so couldn't really help the club in their sort of fight against relegation. Luckily they stayed up by the skin of their teeth. But yeah, come that summer, it was just about concentrating on getting fit because I knew that I was going to be going up to join Jimmy again at Aberdeen.
Yeah, and 3 years there and bit of a mixed time, but the biggest highlight without doubt in your time at Aberdeen was finishing third and qualifying for the UEFA Cup and then the subsequent run in the UEFA Cup afterwards. There's a key goal that you scored at Tynecastle that a lot of Aberdeen fans like to recall almost as much as Scott Severin's goal against Rangers on the last day of the season. Was it worth taking the second yellow and getting the red card for that to happen?
Yeah, no, I think I've told this story before. It was coming towards the end of the season. I think the boys that were in the gym nearly every afternoon, like trying to get their bodies ready for the summer, and that's what I think everybody was talking about. If somebody scores at Tynecastle or somebody's going to take the top off and stuff, so it was already in everybody's heads. And then I'd actually just totally forgot that I'd been yellow carded maybe 10-15 minutes before that, but not an important goal. Yeah, big Brew. I think Brew put the cross in, just gambled like I like to make the box as a player, and just gambled on the ball coming in for Big Brew and managed to get a toe on it at the back post. And yeah, brought like a brilliant celebrations behind the goal, but then obviously quickly followed by the second yellow from the referee that brought everybody back down to earth a bit.
Obviously, you can look back in your time with both Dunfermline and Aberdeen with great feelings, but I just need to ask with regards to Jimmy Calderwood, what did he do? What made him so special as a manager at both clubs to get both clubs performing so well and consistently in the league?
Yeah, listen, he was, as I said at the start of the call, he played a major part in my football career. He took me from someone who was obviously just on the bench all the time at Rangers to then really put me into a team and stick by me. I obviously played nearly every game under him. He just made you feel so good as an individual, and I think when you felt so good as an individual, then that just rubbed off on the team as well. And it wasn't just me; it was like the team. He spoke to each player individually at the start of games, came out on the pitch and just basically made you feel so good about yourself. And a big part of being a footballer is enjoying going to work every day. If you enjoy going into work and training as hard as we did, but making it enjoyable as well, I think the players respond to that. So yeah, him and Jimmy Nick had a magic knack of like bouncing off each other and just making players feel so good about themselves. So that's how I feel about him.
Yeah, definitely a top man who will be missed, and how apt it is that the two of them, Aberdeen and Dunfermline, play each other in the Scottish Cup weekend coming. Just how much was that written in the stars, and what do you think? How the game what kind of tribute do you expect to see this weekend? Will also both sets of fans paying their respects to the great man?
Yeah, listen, I think it'll be an amazing occasion. He'll be highly respected from both clubs, 100%. I think he brought the good times back to both clubs. So yeah, I'm really hoping. I'm looking forward to seeing how the sort of tribute goes to him before or after the game, whatever they decide to do. But it'll be a special occasion for both clubs. He'll be fondly remembered, definitely.
Right, well, off the back of that is us done. Stop listening to us. Go and do something productive. I'm sick of the sight of all of yous, even though I'm looking at you, Finn. So it's just you.
Sick of the sight of me. I get it.
But thanks a lot for joining me. Thanks to Laura for her video going off in her holidays. What a disgrace. And yeah, we'll see you next time. Bye.